Kentucky basketball gets a massive victory over the Florida Gators on the road to open up SEC play, proving that these Cats have some serious mental toughness.
You are Locked On Kentucky, your daily podcast on the Kentucky Wildcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, what's going on, Big Blue Nation? Welcome on into Locked On Kentucky, your daily Kentucky Wildcats podcast. I'm your host, Lance Dawe, writer for Sports Illustrated for various SEC-related things. But on this podcast, we take a dive into all things Kentucky athletics. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. You can download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. On today's episode of Locked On Kentucky, we are going to be recapping the Cats' 87-85 victory over Florida on the road, opening up SEC play with a clutch win. Mental toughness. I think that is the theme of today's episode for the Kentucky Wildcats. Resilient even when Florida battled throughout this game. Thank you so much for making Locked On Kentucky your first listen every single day. I want to remind everyone out there that we are free and available on all platforms. If you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe to the show. If you're listening on podcast, I would really appreciate it if you subscribe there as well. So let's go ahead and get into it. 87-85 was the final score for the Kentucky Wildcats, closing things out down the stretch after being down what felt like the majority of this game. Florida had a lead for, I believe, a little bit over 28 minutes in this contest. Kentucky just kind of trailing by a few points, by double digits for a couple different times in this one, but they managed to fight back. They managed to rebound, and they were able to shake off what was a very lackluster first half. A lot of threes missed. Kentucky in the post offensively was doing some weird things. I said before the beginning of this game, I said that Kentucky needs to operate the way that they have over these past several games, where offensively they've been very strong. Shoot the three ball, run with pace, and let your guards dictate the outcome of this game. Kentucky ended up slowing things down from beyond the arc and, again, doing some weird things inside the arc, which we will get to when talking about the negatives in this one. But for the most part, Kentucky in that second half did run as things started to close out, and Kentucky was able to tie and then take the lead with, I believe, 74 points scored from both teams in the contest. Kentucky was able to kind of run their stuff and get back to where they were comfortably in prior games. I think that is the takeaway here. Kentucky was able to focus up despite not playing their best effort on the road. Again, offensively, there were some miscues. In the first half, there were quite a bit of turnovers. I believe there were 7 in the first half. Kentucky only committed 2 in the second half, if I'm not mistaken. There were so many different moments in that second half where it felt like Florida would be able to start some sort of run with the crowd behind them, with the energy in the building. It felt like there would be several opportunities where they could get the game back up to 4, 5, 6 points at different times, and yet they were still never able to hold on to that lead. Kentucky continued to fight back over and over and over again. Very impressed with the way that this squad performed, especially in the second half, scoring 50 points in that second period. So that's the big takeaway here to start things off. Kentucky eventually settled in, focused up, played their brand of basketball, and they ended up winning. Florida, on the other hand, had various points in this one where it was clear that their style was winning. Get to the foul line quite a bit, finish the game with 29 free throws, be aggressive in getting downhill and getting to the rim. They were. They shot, I think, a little bit more from beyond the arc than they normally do. They finished 9 of 31 on the game, 1 of 11 in the second half, which we'll get to that point in a second. But compared to Kentucky, Florida started the game kind of playing the way they want to play, finished the first half on a large run, playing the way that they want to play, and then for bits and pieces of the second half, they were still able to kind of do what they normally do, use their length to bother teams defensively, which they did against Kentucky today, and just kind of let their guards dictate what was happening, which is what Kentucky wanted to do in this game, and they did eventually end up doing it. Zion Pullen, who I said was the MVP of this team so far this season, despite being the third leading scorer, 23 points in this one, 9 of 15 from the floor, 2 of 4 from outside the arc, 3 assists to only 1 turnover and 3 rebounds. He was really good at various points in this contest. Walter Clayton Jr. finished also with 23 points on less efficient numbers, 3 of 11 from beyond the arc. But those were the two guys that kind of led them. Riley Kugel shined in this one, despite not being very efficient so far this season. And he was the guy that we said, I think, way before the season started when talking about this game and talking about the Gators. Hey, Riley is a guy that you can look at as a potential NBA guard, somebody that's going to hang with Kentucky's personnel. And he finished the game 15 points, 5 of 10 from the floor, shooting 50% from beyond the arc as well. He ended up fouling out late in this one, but it was a strong performance. It was a very strong performance from those 3 guards collectively for the Gators. Outside of those guys, you had Condone, who we talked about, the freshman, being efficient in his minutes, got 23 minutes more than he normally does, finished with 10 points on 3 of 6 shooting. But outside those 3 guards, Florida didn't really have a ton of answers. And it was impressive to me how at various points Kentucky's defense really held firm. There were a couple of possessions there late where Aaron Bradshaw, who did not have a good first half and had a phenomenal second half, stepped up, made a block or 2. Really solid defensive stops where Kentucky was forcing turnovers, grabbing defensive rebounds. I understand there are also various points in this game where Florida had their fair share of offensive rebounds, but I have a number on that I want to share with you in a second. Defensively, Kentucky threw Florida out of their comfort zone towards the end of the game. And what have we been talking about on KenPom? Kentucky was hovering somewhere between 40th and 50th-ish in adjusted defensive efficiency. That game jumped Kentucky from 50th to 43rd. One game. If you can have another good defensive outing against Missouri, you're already in the criteria that I set for Kentucky to have a successful SEC slate. Now, you need to maintain that, which is being inside the top 40 of adjusted defensive efficiency while also maintaining your offensive status, 87 points per game. Hey, we'll take that. That's underneath the 91 point per game average, but I said 84, 85 points is where Kentucky probably needs to hover around, and they certainly did that in this contest. Kentucky went out and got a massive win on the road. This is a quad 1 victory for the Wildcats. Huge momentum builder for UK, who is going to return home to play Missouri here on Tuesday. I want to talk a little bit more about the individual performances, a couple of different stats for you guys, and just some overall thoughts in just a second. Before we do that, though, I want to tell you guys about our friends over at FanDuel. The NFL regular season is wrapping up, but there is still time to get in on the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. The app is super easy to use as well. There are so many different ways to bet, like same-game parlays. You can find bets in the new Explore tab. You can also go to the Parlay Hub and make a parlay. It's the best place to find all of their different popular parlays that you may want to take a look at, and so much more on top of that. So you need to visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet a layup. That is FanDuel, an official partner of the NFL. All right, continuing along here on the Saturday edition of Locked On Kentucky. Lance Dawe hanging out here with you. Really appreciate you guys making Locked On Kentucky your first listen every single day. If you have not subscribed to the show already, I would really appreciate it if you went ahead and did that. If you were listening on podcast, I would also appreciate it if you subbed there as well. This is a big win for Kentucky, proving that they can go on the road in this conference and win tough games. There are going to be tougher games that the Wildcats face in the coming days. Obviously, Texas A&M here in just a week is going to prove to be massive for the Wildcats as well. That's a team that really does a great job on the offensive glass, getting second chance points, as did the Florida Gators, who I believe at the time of tip-off were number 6 in the country in offensive rebound percentage. And I have a stat here for you from Sean Vinzel, Hoops Insight, friend of the program, put this tweet out. UK had held Florida to an offensive rebound rate of 26%, well below their usual 41%. I think 6 more offensive boards would have helped Florida a ton. And he's absolutely right. 6 more offensive boards might have won this game for Florida and closed it out in the final few minutes, instead of Kentucky being the one grabbing the lead there late, closing things out in the final few minutes. Kentucky was able to grab some defensive rebounds. Not a lot of second chance points, not a lot of offensive rebounds for Kentucky so far this season. But I was impressed with some of the aggression that we saw on the glass at various points late in this game. Although, credit to Florida, that's a really good team. I said that in the preview episode, and I'll say it again here. I predicted an 80-77 win because I thought that statistically both these teams would shoot a little bit less efficiently than they normally do. That happened in this contest, but free throws ended up at the end of the game making it a little bit more skewed. I believe Kentucky was up like 80-78 or 80-76 with time winding down in the final minute or so. We were trending towards kind of where I thought this was gonna end up. But credit to Kentucky for defensively stepping up at various points and shutting things down. One of the guys that's really stepped up in the final few minutes that we mentioned earlier, Aaron Bradshaw. 3 of 7 from the floor. Not the best game from Aaron Bradshaw, especially considering what happened in the first half. But the second half, all 10 of his points came in the second half. He finished with 7 rebounds, and then that massive, massive three-pointer there late in the game. Aaron Bradshaw makes those. He's proven that whenever he's open at the top of the key on the wing, he can hurt you so far this season. And I believe it's like his 4th 3 of the year. But he has proven that he has that outside shot. He also had a really nice mid-range jumper on the left wing there at some point, or just left corner, rather, I should say, at some point in that second half. That was just a nice play and a really nice shot from Bradshaw. He had a couple of big-time makes in this one, a couple of clutch free throws down the stretch despite only shooting 3 of 6 from the line. Great performance from Aaron in the second half of this game. Another player that I want to point out, Antonio Reeves finished the game with 19 points, led the Wildcats in scoring. Something we said in the preview episode is you can't let Reeves go completely cold. He finished the game shooting 50% from the floor, 2 of 7 from 3, but 8 of 16 overall. And I'll say this, 2 of 7 is not great. It's not good. But the fact that he was able to finish the day attacking the rim, continuing to go at the rim and finishing effectively when you had several other Wildcats that were not shooting very well around the rim. We'll get to that in a second. That was impressive. That was impressive. Reeves has really changed, I think, offensively the way that he has approached this season. He's more aggressive getting downhill, and he's stronger finishing at the rim, especially compared to 2 seasons ago at Illinois State. A note here from Kyle Tucker of The Athletic. Statistically, Kentucky did not play very well. This is what he had to say. Kentucky was 5 of 20 from 3, missed 8 free throws, missed 10 layups/dunks, had 6 assists, 9 turnovers, only led for 5 total minutes, and yet they won. That's an awfully impressive win by a bunch of freshmen with a help from a couple of clutch veterans. Trey Mitchell, another veteran in this game, and I want to get into the negatives here just a little bit because that opens the gateway. Kentucky statistically did not play very well, shooting 25% from from beyond the arc, 46% from the field, missed a couple of important free throws late, missed a couple of free throws in that second half that would have given Kentucky the lead had they strung together a couple of consistent trips to the free throw line. But Trey Mitchell, double-double here, 12 points, 10 rebounds, no assists. He normally has a couple. missed both of his outside shots, but he was 5 of 12 from the floor, and that's not terrible. But there were moments in this game offensively where I just kind of sat there and scratched my head. I did not understand what Kentucky was doing in the half court at times. They continued to post up Trey Mitchell and Ugonna Onyenso. Onyenso, by the way, finished 2 of 6 from the floor. I don't understand, if you have this height, why you don't utilize them in a different way that flows with the pacing and the aggression of this dribble, drive, get downhill type of offense. Because Mitchell can handle the ball. We've seen him drive downhill before. He does not need to be posting up as many times as he did in this game. Onyenso, that may be the only thing he's got in his bag. So that's fine, whatever. But it doesn't need to happen as often as it did today against a team like Florida, who we said in the preview show has length that can affect Kentucky at the rim. So what did we say? They need to be more aggressive with their guards and trying to get downhill and either draw fouls or score at the rim and leave opportunities for Mitchell and Onyenso to grab second chance points. That did not happen consistently in this game. Kentucky's guards didn't end up playing well collectively. But the post-ups, I did not get some of the close-range shots that Kentucky took. They were not great shots. It did not feel like within the context of where they were in the game. That needs to be adjusted moving forward. You can't have that. You can't have lulls like that in SEC play. Because as bad as Kentucky was statistically, hey, Florida did not shoot well either. They shot 62% from the foul line, which is normal for them, I guess, according to what we said in the preview episode. But they shot worse from the field than Kentucky did. Took the same amount of shots. Had similar turnovers, had similar issues, just could not capitalize. Florida could have won this game easily. Easily. They could have won by 5 or 6 points. But they didn't capitalize, and Kentucky took over late. But they can't have things like the offensive lulls and the question marks when it comes to the decision-making of who gets touches, when they get touches, how they get touches. And I understand things can't be perfect, but that's something that you can eliminate because it happened so many different times, like 7 or 8 different times, and it produced, I believe, 2 points from Onyenso in the second half. That can be changed. It can absolutely be changed. Speaking of, like I said earlier, the guard play, Reeves played well. DJ Wagner had himself a game in the second half. 14 points, 6 of 10 from the floor, had 3 assists to just 1 turnover. He had some really solid minutes in the second half. Also had a couple of lapses, grabbing rebounds, which I guess happens, but also a little bit more effort would be appreciated overall from the team grabbing rebounds. That's not a shot at anybody individually. Just saying Kentucky could be better at it, obviously. But Wagner had himself a game, making some clutch buckets to help Kentucky stay in it, while Florida continued to kind of flounder at different points in the second period. Wagner had a good game. Reed Sheppard, 14 points, 2 of 4 from the field, but 9 of 11 from the charity stripe. He missed 2 free throws on this day, which was really surprising considering how well he normally shoots from the line, and then he proved to everybody over the final couple of minutes, hey, this is how you knock down your free throws, because the rest of both teams were struggling at the charity stripe. 5 assists, 5 rebounds, 2 assists. Really solid minutes from Reed Sheppard, on just 24 minutes off the bench. The guard play was solid overall for Kentucky, minus Rob Dillingham, who was 0-4 from 3, 2 of 7 from the floor, had 4 turnovers to just 1 assist. Not a good day for Rob Dillingham, who the chaos was just not there in the right way for Rob in this contest. But overall, solid win, good defense down the stretch. Offense could be better, and it didn't have to, for the most part, have to do with what Florida was doing, I don't think. Although their length did affect Kentucky inside, the shot selection could have been better. It certainly could have been better. Different decisions could have been made. I think Kentucky can be better than this. I think Florida can be better than this. This was a great game, really fun game, and I think both of these teams have not hit their ceiling yet in conference play. So we'll see what happens, but the Wildcats emerge victorious in a big way here. Hopefully, heading into the Missouri game, Kentucky does not slow up, and they're able to take care of business on Tuesday. Big time win for the Cats. Let me know what you think about the win in the comments below, or you can hit me on the socials at Locked On UK. All right, that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Kentucky. You can follow the show on Twitter at Locked On UK. You can follow me on Twitter at LanceDawe_, and follow the show over on Instagram. That is at Kentucky Podcast. Any questions, comments, concerns, leave those in the YouTube comments below. Hit me on the socials. I will see you all on Monday for another episode of Locked On Kentucky. Have a great rest of your day, and God bless.